Alright, so we have a character jump in, but there's a few things we need to improve upon. The main issue being that we can't stop the player from continuously jumping. Hey, my name is Jason Boza and welcome to Make and Break Games. So in this video we're going to limit our characters so they can only jump when they are on the ground. So the way we're going to do this is by adding a raycast to our character, and then all we have to do is add a couple checks, and from there we can determine whether or not we want to process the jump button input. We're also going to change the way we process the jump mechanic, but more on that when we get into Godot. Speaking of which, let's get right into it. Alright, so now we're back in Godot. Let's go ahead and test to see where we were left off. And we can go left, right, and we can jump. Now, you might say, hey, that's all we needed, right? The problem is now, if I hold jump, he just kind of goes away. And I can just kind of stay in the air as much as I want. Which in a certain game, something like maybe Kirby or something like that, where you want to just fly around, that might be the feeling you're going for. But for us, we just want a basic jump, so we want to be able to jump off the ground and not so much in the air. Maybe not yet. So there's a couple things we need to check at this point. First one being, we want to be able to know when we're on the ground, so then we can determine whether or not we want to jump. And after that, we also want to do something about this holding jump. So let's take care of the first problem. To do that, there's a couple ways. There's seemingly a couple ways to do it. The first way would have, my first choice was actually going to use the is on floor function from the Kinematic Body 2D. The problem with this is that it wasn't very reliable. Sometimes it would give me false positives, and I didn't really, as soon as it did that, it was just like, okay, there's going to be another way. And what I ended up finding was that a more common way to do it is by using a raycast. And that's what we're going to do. So go to your character and hit the plus button, and we're going to add a raycast 2D. And what a raycast is just a position with a length and a direction. So think of it just a line, basically. And what we're gonna find is that when this line collides with anything, and naming specifically our floor, it's gonna give us that information. And with that information, we can then determine whether or not we want to jump. Something that I constantly forget to do, and I'm not really sure why this isn't already set at default. You have to turn this on. A couple times now, I've kept forgetting to turn this on, and I'm just like, why doesn't it give me a collision? So just go ahead and turn that on, and now we'll go to our script. So now that it's a child of our character, we can get access to that, and we can get access to anything, and I'll show you right now. First thing we're going to do is make a variable that we can set to that node. So we'll just make a variable, and we can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it raycast, just so it's easy to understand where where I'm coming from. And we want to make it a raycast 2D, and that's what this is. But the names are just the same, but that's just what the object is. In order to set it, what we want to do is come down here on ready, and this is what this on ready function is for, is to set things as soon as it becomes available on the tree. And what we want to do is just go raycast and set it to our node. And to get our node, we want to, it's basically, as I said, get node. And there are all our nodes. I'm not sure what this dot is, to be honest, but there's our collision shape 2D, our raycast 2D, and our sprite. So you can see how you can get access to all these nodes and start manipulating them through the script, which is really powerful. So for now, we just want to get our raycast 2D. Grab that. Shouldn't have any issues. Perfect. And now we need to use it. So we know that this check right here is allowing us to move negative 800 in the y-axis. But now we want to add another check. And to do that, we can just literally spell out and then access our raycast. and we want to check if it's colliding at this moment. So is colliding. Close out, open and close parentheses to finish it off, and that works. If you want to know more about it, you can check all these functions here in this search help, and just educate yourself on what you can do with this. It's very powerful. Now that we have that, we can go to our test bed and see exactly what that did for us. So now I can move left to move right like normal. What happens if I press jump? Alright, normal. What happens if I press it a lot? Alright, so I'm no longer able to fly. But now we have a different issue. Maybe not an issue, but just something I'm not really fond of. We fixed the ability to fly, but now if I hold on up, I just jump without a care in the world. And this might not be a problem for whatever game you might want to make, but for me personally, I like the way it feels, the feedback when you press a button and it does it, and then you have to let go and press it again in order to have that same scenario happen. So the problem with just holding onto it, it just makes it feel very strange. It also makes it feel like you can just hold onto it and move a direction, and there's no real timing involved at that point. It feels, at least. That's more of a design choice. But anyway, in either case, we want to fix it. And to do that, we're gonna have to move this function out somewhere. And this is where we start getting into events. So we're gonna make a function called input event. And in here, what we want to do is basically take our jump input, put it in here. And what this is going to do is, instead of it checking every frame whether or not this is currently this event is currently happening, this event is only going to shoot out the moment it does become true, and then give us that effect of only one per event. So when I press jump, I jump. If I hold jump, I don't continuously jump. I have to let go and then restart the event to jump again. So it's the same code as before. The only difference is, instead of input, we're going to use event, because this is already in the input function. So the event's going to have that information too. So let's see what that ends up doing. So it can still move. And now if I hold, I only jump a certain space. And even if I tap, see the difference in spacing as well? That's also because as long as I hold it, my raycast, which should be easier to show from here, my raycast might still be in the ground a little bit. So it might even be up until this very tip, that as soon as it leaves that, like right here, if you see this is still considered collision, this is still considered colliding up to this point. So technically, I'm moving 800 pixels up from this position, which might not be what I want. And instead, I want to move 800 pixels up from this position, so I understand where my character is going to go. So that's why we're getting a smaller jump now, because now it's moving 800 pixels from the position. And that's, if we want to go higher, that's not a hard problem. We just need to bump this number up. We can go just a little bit higher and really get a pinpoint. We can be really accurate with how far we want to go up. Now we have a character jumping just the way we want him to. In the next video, we're going to add a few more platforms and kind of pretty things up a little bit. But what I mean by that is how to get royalty-free assets and getting them in. And at the end of that, we should be all caught up with the initial video, which if you haven't seen, I recommend you go check it out. But in any case, we have exactly what we need at this point to make basically any type of 2D game. Of course, there's a lot of things we don't fully understand yet, and there's a lot of features that we still need to break down. But at this point, we have the ability to move objects, the ability to collide, and the ability to drop in assets. At that point, you just kind of mix those things around in interesting ways, and you can come out with any type of game. But that's just a very basic thought process. As we keep running into more challenges, we'll just break down each problem into step-by-step processes and then progressively just make our game. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.